All right. Good evening, everyone. We're chortling about the weather here that we think we're having a cold snap, and it was 11 below when Tracy over there left Chicago this morning. But that's one reason to spend part of the winter in Arizona,
Guess so.
where 60 is a cold snap. Anyway, thank you all very much for coming out tonight. This is, I think, the first time both of you have been here, right? So we're delighted to have them. I really enjoyed reading their books. Are you planning to talk to each other, or is it going to be me interrogating you? Either one's fine.
You can interrogate
I'll-
us. I wanna
You want
see
me
how
to
that goes.
interrogate you? All right.
I want to see what
Well,
that looks like.
anyway, we can make it interactive, so it'll all work out. One of the things that I thought was wonderful about Barbara's book is that I am scheduled to go from Auckland to Singapore next January. So I thought, wow, this is my opportunity to find out a little more about Singapore. And I guess the question I have is, have you actually been there?
I actually have.
You have.
You can follow the directions in my book.
I know. Well, I thought you had some good stuff about the night market and, or at least the food market and other things. And I thought if this is a thriller writer, generally has to be accurate because then they're, criticized online. So I thought with luck, maybe you actually have done all that and then I can profit from it.
I did, and the one place I cheated was when we moved from an office to a hawker center where the food is. It's like half a block, but I really wanted a taxi ride in there, so I threw in that she gave her a tour. So they went the long way. That's the only
If
part.
you were in Phoenix and you had read about the guy that was trapped in a Waymo car circling the airport, you would have been okay. You could have put him in a Waymo.
Oh, no.
And as I understand it, that was a greatly exaggerated trip around the airport, but it made good copy. Phoenix and San Francisco are the two sort of test cities for Waymo. It's really unnerving, and there are more of them all the time, aren't there? I swear. You have to really seriously think about, if it's going to turn left in front of you, do you really want to pull out? It happens to me frequently. Or do you really want to pass them? Or do you have them in Chicago at all? No. So just here. Well, your time is coming.
We just have really crotchety old taxi drivers.
Okay.
But all of a sudden, Chicago traffic's not looking too bad now, right?
Yeah.
Well, it is very strange. In any case, I thought that Barbara's book was fascinating on several levels. Not only did I really like the part about Singapore, but in its way, it's a locked room mystery that you could only the person that actually designed the yacht where there might be some space concealed could have figured it out. I love that. I hope that wasn't a huge spoiler, but it does come up
not at
early in the
all.
book.
I mean, a yacht, what do you expect? There has to be an undisclosed space, right?
Well, I think locker room mysteries are a lot of fun. It isn't a locker room mystery in a traditional sense, but one of the big questions that arises from our heroine is there some space that is not
Accounted for.
Yes, exactly. So what got you interested in writing about yacht design? I mean, that's the other thing that's so much fun. I never thought about what it would take to design and build a mega yacht up until now.
It's not a world that most of us are familiar with because it's the world of the ultra high net worth individuals, which probably none of us in this room. It means you have you're worth
wearing
at
my
least
Montclair jacket, so rethink that.
I am so sorry, Barbara.
I am not, however, commissioning a yacht.
Company accepted because you're smarter than that.
No, you have to seriously. I mean, a yacht is a hole in the ocean into which to pour money. All of us know that. So,
It is a floating
I'm certainly not
palace.
in that class at all.
Well, and it started with an article in the New Yorker by Evan Osnos called "The Haves and the Have Yachts," because that's how it is. There are the haves, the multimillionaires, and then there's the have yachts, and there's super yachts, and there's mega yachts, and there's giga yachts, and it's that old joke about men and their cars and what? Yeah, it's kind of like that. Everybody wants the biggest yacht.
Is there no actual female mega yacht owner? Are they all men?
I do not know of a single one.
Does anyone know if
the
there's a
ones
woman
I've
that
seen are
has one?
arm candy. I hate to say.
Thinking about it. Well, we know about Jeff Bezos, but
Yes, and he's the one that wanted the bridge
he
taken
actually
down.
had to move. He had to take
Yeah.
down a bridge in Amsterdam
Well,
in
they
order to get
wouldn't
his
do
ship
it.
out. Well, what happened? Did they take
They
the ship
took
apart?
a back way. Yeah, and they did. They had to remove the mast, the big pokey part.
So
Yeah.
sorry for him. What a
I
shame.
know.
Right. But anyway, you write as though you actually know about yacht design. So how did you bone up on it?
I was very fortunate. It was a sign that just as I settled on this milieu that I wanted my book to take place in, somebody produced a tome this thick on the entire super yacht business, from concept through design, through all the engineering pieces of it, to how to run it, to the ultra high net worth individuals who they have staff. They don't have an assistant. They have an entire family team of people to run things for them. And this book covered all of it. And then I reached out to people who actually design yachts and had them vet the book to make sure that I hadn't screwed anything up, because I'm not really a yacht designer.
Well, I thought it was a fascinating world.
Thank you.
It's fun to read books where you get to learn stuff, I think, while you're getting a good story. And while it's not likely that I will ever actually utilize the knowledge that I've gained from this, or even
Just in
perhaps
Singapore.
sailed on one, at the same time, I thought it was fascinating. I was trying. Do you remember the Russian? I don't remember his name, but there's a Russian oligarch, the one that paid for the Da Vinci, the somewhat questionable Da Vinci that served, and he's keeping it on his yacht, or he has been, out in the middle of the Mediterranean, to the panic of the art world, because
Yes.
it's not a salubrious climate for a very old oil painting, and so. Guys like that, you could buy a Da Vinci and use it, to decorate the lounge of your super yacht. You're right.
And it's not uncommon, I hate to say.
It's a different world. Right. All right. So, Tracy, when I read the opening parts of your book and you're coming down Lakeshore Drive and turning onto Evanston, what college were we really going to? Northwestern, of which I am a graduate, or Mundelein, or what, or just made it up?
No, I graduated from Mundelein, but it's your school. So
It is
I had to
Northwestern.
change the name because, I had to. But yeah.
The minute you said
that's
the
your-
lake was east, I knew.
There you go. That's you.
I earned my master's at Northwestern by typing theses and dissertations. I was a department secretary in the chemical engineering department at the Tech Institute, and I got married, and I was very pregnant, and I was actually pregnant after I got married, just to make that clear. And I had to go all the way to Harris Hall at the other end of the campus for classes. So picture me tottering along in the icy winter, this shape. It's a long walk from the Tech Institute to Harris Hall, isn't it?
Yep.
Even
was just-
often at 11 degrees.
I mean, yeah, I was sort of driving around the area because that's what I kind of do when I try to figure out where I'm going to dump bodies. So I'm driving, and I said, well, that's an interesting little field over there. I wonder if they, could put something there. And that's how the body came first. The location came there. And so, I had to change the name of the school, of course. But otherwise,
Why not? It
We
would
know
have
where it
been
is.
sort of fun to dump it in front of the Deering Library. You could have had a version of the
On the
body
steps.
in the library.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful, beautiful Gothic building. I'm assuming, because I haven't been there for a while, it's still there as a beautiful Gothic building.
I think it's still there. I mean, nothing much
And it
changes
had a
that
long
much.
rolling lawn. In Northwestern, because it's built on Lake Michigan, people keep trying to reclaim more land into Lake Michigan, because there's nowhere to go into Evanston to get more land for the university, but you can, pile up stuff and create more land out in, sort of like the Russians are doing up in the Arctic. Same principle, to extend the 200-mile limit out farther to claim more of the Arctic Ocean. Northwestern is doing its
Yeah,
own thing
little by
to claim
little, yeah.
more of Lake Michigan.
Yeah.
Love it.
China's doing the same thing
Yes,
in
they
the
are.
South China Sea.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, this is your third book about your Chicago detective. So can you catch us up, the first two, just sort of briefly, so we know where we are?
Well, let's see. In the first book, she's sort of standing on the sidewalk, trying to decide whether or not she goes into the police station. That's how we meet her. I've given her a lot of tons of things to deal with. I've given her a son that's been killed. I've given her an ex-husband. I've given her a dead partner. And then I have her go through the front door of the police station, and I give her the worst possible partner I can possibly give her. So I've got all of this weight on her shoulders, and then we see where the character goes, because that's the fun part of this. You build characters that have things they have to deal with. And so I give Harriet, in that first book, a ton of things to deal with. And she has to deal with it in the second book and the third book, and she's dealing with it in the fourth book that I'm writing right now. And so we find out what characters are made of by the things that we give them to sort of figure out. And so she's got all of this guilt, sense of responsibility, grief, loss. And then on top of that, in the first book, I give her a serial killer. In the second book, I give her a series of dead aldermen in the city. And in the third book, Echo, a fraternity death that echoes to a similar death 30 years prior. And she and her team have to figure out what connects those two cases, who's doing the killing, and on top of that, deal with all the personal stuff that I've given her to sort of untangle. So that's what I kind of like to do with characters, just throw stuff at them and see where they are.
I'd be reluctant to spend a lot of time with you while you're plotting these books. Or do you take it all out in the
Take your
books and you're
chances, Barbara, you
actually
take
a
your chances.
marshmallow in real life?
You do not want to be a character in Tracy's book, right?
Well, that's what we want to give them something that they have to chew on, right? I mean, you don't want to give them something that they can easily fix because, that's not interesting. You give them something that is probably on maybe the safe side of being too much. And then we have to figure out what they do with that, whether they rise or fall, go forward or backward, but they've got to move some kind of way. So whether or not they move, in a positive way or a negative way, they have to do something. So until I figure out what that is, because I don't have an outline, I'm one of those weird writers who don't have like a plot or know where they're going, I sort of throw stuff at them and then to see what they do. So it's kind of like putting a tea bag in some hot water, and the longer you keep it in there, the stronger it gets. And so that's what I like to do with Harriet and all the other characters too. Just see what they've got. Show me what you've got. And until I figure it out, I just sort of throw stuff. So
the stickers are right. So this is not your only series. You've also written one about Cassie. Did you make Kathy's life so hard that you decided to
I'd do
go
the same
with
thing.
somebody?
I mean,
No, that wasn't my question. Did you make it so hard that you thought you ought to torture another character?
No, I don't think I was hard enough on her on the first there. So Harriet gets the stuff that I left out. So my bad.
No, not at all. I don't mean to sound negative at all. I think it's fascinating, and you're right. That if they were in a boring situation, whatever, it wouldn't be all that interesting to read.
You want something that sort of confounds them. You want that sort of razor blade against the skin. That's what I'm thinking all the time when I'm writing these characters. I want something that confounds them, something that irritates them, something that they can't get over, a hurdle, or something that they have to deal with. So Cass had it in her backstory. She's got a dead priest that sort of raised her. That's the book one. So that's the inciting thing. And in Harriet, she's got all of this other personal stuff that she's got to figure out how to fix. So
Yeah, certainly losing a child would be so devastating that many people never recover from it.
And in the way that he was lost, I mean, she's a cop. I mean, she's responsible for keeping the city safe, and she couldn't keep her own kids safe. And so think about how that sort of messes you up. So she's serving and protecting all over the city of Chicago, and then her son is killed in a theft, and she was not there to protect him. So she's got that weighing on her, and her dead partner, and her ex-husband, and then a serial killer. And
what'd she do for fun, Tracy?
I don't know. I don't know what I do for fun.
So Chicago is a huge city. I mean, when I was a child, it was the second biggest city in the country. I think Los Angeles may have crept past it. Do you all know that Phoenix is now larger than L.A.? Not in population, but in
Sprawl.
space. Thank you. I couldn't think of the word. We've now exceeded Los Angeles because there are very few barriers to expansion in Phoenix. We could actually build it all the way to California.
And yet I just walked over here and I didn't see one rat. Okay, so I'm thinking, what's Phoenix doing?
Well, it's a series,
Cats?
right?
Oh, cats. Okay, that's the.
It's a series of smaller
hot?
communities. So, but LA is too. London is. In fact, London is a whole series of villages that, got engulfed as the city progressed. So it's not unusual. When I first came to Scottsdale in 1950, it wasn't even incorporated. There were 2 paved roads, and you had to take a buckboard from Terminal 1, which was the only thing at the airport, to go to the Camelback Inn. It was hilarious, to watch how it's grown. But Chicago is immense, so Harriet can't possibly just be all over Chicago. Isn't the police department, don't they have specific precincts or beats or whatever it is?
And she's in District 1, so I sort of fix the cases where she has to sort of consult with other people. So her body is dumped here in her area, but their other body is in another area. So she's got to work with those cops in conjunction with, you know, her team. And so that's how I sort of get around that, because yeah, they do have areas that they sort of police, and that's their area, and something happens over there that's somebody else's problem. So I have to figure out how to sort of get around that. So far I've been lucky enough to sort of have her, you know, consult with other teams and other areas, and together they have to solve what this case is. So, you know, it's a constant stress and struggle.
Barbara, on the other hand, is sending a private citizen into a situation without any actual, you know, legal authority. I mean, she's not a member of law enforcement. One of the things I really enjoyed about both your books, in an era where most things I have to read are, you know, it's all about the twist, and the plots don't necessarily move in a linear direction. I'm an old-fashioned reader, and I really like police procedurals and private eye stories and your kind of story, because they start with an instigating incident and they do move forward. You may have flashbacks to other stuff, but basically it's a forward-moving investigation instead of one that's swirling all around or moving back and forth in time. I read a book this afternoon that had 8 different timelines. I was like whiplash, you know, trying to, I mean, we're in 1890 and then we're here and we're there and all. And I understand that you know, is a perfectly good form of storytelling, but my mind still works more in a track. So I mean, why did you decide to write a police procedural?
Well, I don't outline, so police procedurals sort of have a format all their own. So police don't sort of make stuff up as they go. They've got a procedure, hence the title. So body dumps there. Step 1, step 2, step 3. So it's kind of like having an outline without having one. So I follow the trails that the police follow, and that sort of keeps me sort of moving forward. So that's how I do it. It's easier for me that way because I don't have anything other than that. I just sort of meet that laptop in the morning, and I sort of see what comes out of it. And you know, if nothing comes out, if I only get a paragraph or 2, sometimes I get 5,000 words in a session. Sometimes I get half a paragraph. Those are not good days, but you know, it's that kind of a thing. Planters we're like rats in a maze. I mean, we're back and forth. Most of the time we're deleting. We think we're moving forward. You come back the next day, have to delete all of that and start over again. So it's a stressful sort of way of doing it. Barbara's probably 10 times more organized than I am. But you know, that's kind of how I do it. I mean, police procedurals kind of have a thing. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Who touches the body first? Who doesn't? What happens when you interview the witnesses? Who does that? Who doesn't? So it kind of keeps me going forward, even though not at a fast pace.
It makes perfectly good sense. I used to love the 87th Precinct novels that Ed McBain wrote. And ages ago, probably before you were born, there was a writer named Del Shannon who wrote the most marvelous police procedurals set in Los Angeles with Lieutenant Luis Mendoza as the lead. And she was great in the same sense that you're talking about step by step. And generally, she would have like one lead case, and then there'd be a couple of other things that other cops were working, because it isn't true to life that cops just get to work one thing. You know, there's many things going on, but you have to have like a pull-through case, right?
You have to have that thread to sort of go through. So we're a little fudging it a little bit, but you know, it's fiction and it's not real life, but we try to make it sound real, look real, smell real, as much as we can do that.
Plus, if it's really high profile, it probably does take more attention than maybe, you know, it's
That's
believable that, you know, somebody would spend a lot more time on it, if, you know.
Nothing beats a serial killer. I mean, that's like a top of that's the apex.
Well, but you have some really, you know, high net worth individuals in this book, and that means, if I remember Chicago correctly, Chicago has always been, I don't even know what the right word is, but it's always been a city where, how do I describe it?
Corrupt?
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. I wasn't thinking, I mean, corrupt seems, even not corrupt. And I'll tell you why I know this, and I think I'm going to bore you with this story, but I remember it so well. My father, I've said this before, was one of the most straightforward, you know, follow the rule guys. I mean, he was a football hero at Northwestern and the whole bit. Really good guy, always wanted us to behave. And shortly after I got my driver's license in my little Volkswagen that I worked all summer at Marshall Fields in the maternity wear department, that was a revelation. In order to earn my share of the money to buy it, I took my sister downtown or whatever, and somehow, I don't remember what it was, I got a ticket. So I was really floored, but guilty, totally guilty. So I go home and I have my ticket and I say to my dad, he said, what am I to do about this ticket? Do I have to go downtown? He took the ticket away from me and he fixed it. I mean, I just couldn't believe it. I still can't to this very day, and that's not what you call, high level corruption, but nonetheless.
But that's how you live in
fixing it.
Chicago. I mean, nobody pays a parking ticket, or
He
they
had a
didn't used
fixer.
to. Yeah,
I know. But that's how Chicago seems to be. It's always kind of worked. It's always been kind of a.
you're making me homesick now.
It's 11 below, Tracy, or
don't care.
above,
I
or
love it.
whatever we're trying to think about. No, anyway. So back to Singapore. In you,
I
you
will say in Singapore, it's illegal to not flush a public toilet, and I don't think you can fix it.
no, Singapore, right? I mean, chewing gum. I remember the chewing gum laws
The
are
big
really
incident.
draconian,
Yes,
right?
Yes, they still
Yes.
exist.
I know. I'm looking forward to that. I'll have to keep my husband on a very short lease so he doesn't get himself arrested. But why did you decide? Because, you're not writing a series, right? You were writing
Correct. This is a standalone.
standalones, right? So why does that appeal to you as opposed to a series?
I have 2 series, police procedurals, and I really wanted to try something different
Okay.
and see what it was like to have characters that their arc had to begin and close in the same book, and could I do that? Because with each book I try to challenge myself and do something different. I have not tried multiple timelines. I don't think I have the chops for that.
This is the first book by you I have read, so I should have done a little more homework and didn't realize that you had written series. But so you are putting a woman who has no law enforcement experience into a situation. What is your instigating incident? In Tracy's case, it's somebody thrown off a building. But I know serial killing was, you didn't really want to become like Patricia Cornwell, only known for serial killers, right?
I'm fine with it.
They are a lot of fun to play with, and I'm working on one now. But my instigating incident is, so my story is about 2 sisters. They're the heirs to a yacht building company called Ocean House. And one of them has been working in Singapore, building a yacht for a Chinese billionaire. And she suddenly, it's called defenestration, which is a word I thought sounded like backyard repair, something wrong. But it actually means
It's Putin does this all the time.
Putin does this all the time. That's where I got the idea. That's how you get rid of enemies, is they have this tragic fall from a window, and one of my sisters falls or whatever from a 40th floor hotel, the Marina Bay Sands, which I did not change the name, so I might not go back to Singapore. And then, so that's what triggers her sister's trying to figure out what happened when the police rule it a suicide, and she's not really buying that.
But why is Cass in Singapore in the first place?
So she's building a super yacht for this billionaire. When I decided on the yacht background, I could do Russian oligarchs, right? Because they're all having their yachts impounded, which is sort of unfortunate because the countries that are impounding them don't realize that it takes millions of dollars a year to keep up a yacht and to dock it. So it's our tax dollars at work. But anyway,
I could just sink them, but
yeah. So I wanted to do something different, and I found that we are just constantly on the edge of open conflict with China in the South China Sea. And I don't know if you guys remember the whole stir when the Barbie movie and the 9-dash line, and the Chinese wouldn't they wouldn't run the Barbie movie in China because they said, you're defying our territory. Well, the 9-dash line is like Vietnam and the Philippines and these other places that, it's their territory. It's not China's territory, but they're sort of taking a page from Putin's book and trying to claim those territories. So I thought that would be a lot of fun.
The Greenland is
I
the
wasn't
current
going to go
buzzword.
there, but
You really
And
can't help
Panama.
but think Greenland at
Yeah.
the moment. I know. Who knew? Right. It's very hard to take the high moral ground about the Ukraine at the moment. And
Yeah.
I'm not laughing because I think it's funny, actually. I think it's terrible.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the sister in Singapore is not the yacht designing sister, right? She's more of the
She's on the building side
Right.
of the business.
and the sister who
so the
travels to
sis-
Singapore.
Right. So Nadia, who their family lives in Seattle, she travels to Singapore. She's the designer. Her sister is overseeing the final build of this super yacht.
That's a great name. Your super yacht. What do you call it?
Oh, the Red Dragon,
Yeah.
which I thought would be a great title for the book. And then there was this whole Thomas Harris thing.
Titles aren't copyright, but you're right. It might have been confused.
They did change my title actually anyway. So
So the sister that goes there is stricken with grief, thinking that but also doesn't believe it, right?
well, there's
There's
a
a
trip,
lot of
there's a trip
evidence.
to the mortuary, to the morgue, and she has to view the body. So she realizes she really has lost her sister. And now the question is, what happened and why? And when she gets pulled into it, then she has to make a decision as to whether she's going to put her own life at risk to finish up her sister's business.
So each one of you has a scene, an opening scene that kind of shows the crime. You know, Tracy has an opening scene where there's a group of people on top of the building and something bad is going to happen to a person. And you have an opening scene where a woman comes to this hotel and, you know,
Yeah.
and so sort of we know that it isn't going to be
You kind of have that sense maybe it's not going to go well.
right. And that's an interesting way to, you know, you don't necessarily have to show the crime. Why did each of you choose to actually set up the crime at the very beginning?
I just felt like it. As I said, I don't have a plan. I don't have an outline. So I sit down with a blank page on my laptop, and I've got a deadline, and I have to write a story. And I have to find some place to start. So you try to start in the most interesting place you can think of to start, right? I've got my field there. I've got my university and my frat house. And so what could possibly happen? I have to put a body somewhere. I put it there. Then I have to figure out how it got there. I don't know when I start because I don't know anything when I start. And so the body's there. Little by little, detail comes. It's half naked. It's in the middle of the winter. How did the body get out there? They had a party the night before. I'm thinking hazing incident. Sounds good to me. Let's keep writing until I figure out whether or not it's got some energy to it. It turns out it did. And then I have to figure out what else can happen. What else can happen? So another complication, another murder 30 years before, exactly same space, exactly same, the body is found the same way, right out the side the same frat house. Okay, now we're getting interesting. I mean, that's how I build it. I don't have a plan. And so I just sort of keep throwing stuff at it, just like I do with my characters. I keep making it more complicated, a twist here, a twist there. But yeah, I wanted to start with something dramatic. Why is this body here? That's why it's here. Maybe it's connected to something else. And then the ball starts to roll. The gas gets sort of turned up. And then we're off to the races. So this Harriet shows up. She's not expecting much. She's looking at a hazing incident, frat house. Okay, looks pretty simple to me, but it's not simple. And then we go. So we build it, link by link.
I totally get that. I guess what I was really sort of getting at is that we, the reader, know more about what happened because you've set the scene than your detective when she gets there, which I think is an interesting way to approach the story. I mean, I understand why you're doing it, but, sometimes in police procedures, all the cop knows is that something happened, and then they go to the scene of the crime, and we don't know any more than they know.
That's a bit of what makes it a thriller, though, when the reader knows more than the detective knows.
Yeah, but I wanted the reader to know what happened because then there's another part of it. So that's not just it. This happened today or whenever, but it's the connection to the other thing. So I tell you what happened, connection to the other thing, and then now we have to figure out the link. So it's the link in this story, it's the link that I found interesting. What sort of linked this murder, this death, this location, this frat house to the 30-year-old murder, same spot, same conditions, same frat house, same university. So it's that connection, that link that I want to sort of draw the reader into. So I can put the body there. I can tell you that's how it got there. But then you have to figure out what the other thing was. what the other 30-year-old thing was. So I think that's where the journey is. That's where the race becomes sort of imminent, because we have to figure out who the heck is, who would wait. First of all, who would wait 30 years to kill somebody else? I mean, you kill somebody, it's passion, whatever. But 30 years, that's a lot of simmering. Okay, that's a lot of sitting on something. That's a lot of sort of chewing on some fat. Okay, to take 30 years to wait and do it again. So, yeah, I kind of, I'm all over the place really in terms of writing, because I just write until I get interested. And so,
I thought it was a great way to tell the story. I really
I'm good.
did.
I'm glad.
It's just
Because I worry.
no. I didn't mean it at all critically. I just meant that it's a different way to get the reader into it. One way is for the reader not to know anything more than the cop and move forward, and the other way is for the reader to know more. Why did you say you think that makes it more of a thriller?
That's, I think, by definition, they say if the reader knows more than the investigator does, so then they've got this sense of anticipation as to what's going to happen. But I think for me, the entry into a murder mystery, whether it's an espionage background or a police procedural, is the victim. I have a lot of heart for whoever that person is. And I've realized, I didn't think about this, but you gave me an epiphany. All of my novels start with the victim, because it's more of a whodunit than a whodunit. Sure. And what has led them into this situation, and is this somebody that we can have compassion for? And it goes all the way back. Have you read Joseph Cannon's Alamo?
I have not only read it, but I have premiered every Joseph Cannon book he's ever written, including Los Alamos.
He is fantastic, Los Alamos. And that was the first mystery book I read. And he opens it with an old woman walking through, and she stumbles upon a body, and it has a profound effect on her. And obviously that stuck with me because I've kind of done that in my own books.
It really does. But, I could also tell you that Deborah Crombie, an author that I truly love, one of her books, her fifth book, she doesn't have the murder happen until page 150-something, because what she wanted to do was get you invested in the victims so that you would care a lot when this person died. And so, they're all different ways to tell stories, and if they were all the same, we'd all be bored. I think it's great. But I'm always interested in why authors make, choices about which way they want to tell the story, because there isn't any right or wrong way to do it.
Right.
Anyway, why don't you talk to each other? Do you have questions that you'd like to ask each other? Here you go. Talk about your publisher.
So why are we in this crazy business, Tracy?
I don't know.
This is
you think it's going to be great when you first start out, because you're thinking about your story and your characters and your babies, and then it becomes a business, and then it becomes sort of serious, and then it becomes stressful, and then it becomes like really debilitating sometimes, and then it becomes a race. It becomes a race, and so I don't know. I don't know why. I don't know why. I think we were born to be writers. I think writers are born, and they're made, but mostly they're born writers. And you want to tell stories. You want to build characters. You want to listen to the voices in your head. And then you want to write them down. And then you want to share them with other people. So that's where it started for me. And then the conveyor belt started. And it's like that scene from I Love Lucy when the chocolates, it starts out really slow. It starts out really slow.
Perfectly manageable, right?
Leisurely pace. You can do this standing on your head. Then they say, speed it up. And then the chocolates going. I said, that's where we are. That's where we are right now.
Except there's no chocolate involved.
Those chocolates are whizzing. They're whizzing down that conveyor belt. But but it's fun. It's fun. It's stressful. But it's also, it sort of hits you right here. This is what you want to do. This is who you are. And so you want to tell stories. You want to build characters. And so it's fun and stressful. It's a business, and it's weird. But you like it. What else would we do? If we didn't do this, what else would we do? Nothing.
I don't know. I thought volunteering for Amnesty International in some horrible backwater, that would be good. But to me, the important thing is not to lose the fun, because, and I think that's why so many writers struggle with their sophomore effort, because they take all the time that they want and need to write that first book, and they can polish every sentence, and they can make sure that plot really lands, and they can create characters that they love and the readers will love. And then boom, you got 12 months to write a book, preferably 9. How quick can you get that to us? And it upends everything. And I really lost the fun for a while. and I'm determined to get it back. I have my tightest deadline ever, 6 months. It's like, oh my God, I've never even gotten one to you in 9 months. What are you thinking? But I'm going to have fun. It's the hill I might die on, but. And I once commented to Steve Barry, I'm sure you guys have read him. I said, the thing with publishing is the inmates are running the asylum. And he said, oh, I wish they were.
Indeed so. No, actually, yep, Steve will be, no, he won't be here. We'll be doing his lunch on Zoom
Oh,
because
good.
he's going to be traveling.
He's a
very
delight.
interesting, he's a very interesting writer. Now I've lost my train of thought. I was going to say something profound. I can't remember. So keep going while I try to remember what it was. Well, I just did second book therapy actually for an author the other day who wrote to me in
Second book
absolute
therapy.
panic. No, I do a lot of that, right? It is hard. It's very hard, and it's also, it's the book where I think readers are maybe the most judgy because if they've really liked the first book, they have expectations of the second one, and then it gets easier after that. So you've both written more than one book, so you already know that, right? Or
When's
does
it
it
get
never
easier?
get easier? No,
You said get it easier after the second one?
in theory.
Okay.
No?
I'm waiting
They-
for it.
They
Does it
also
get-
say when you learn to write a book, you've learned to write that book.
Right.
Well,
Every
that's
book is
certainly true.
different.
But-
It's the same mountain, not the same mountain, but it's a mountain, not the same mountain. So you have to climb it every single time, and it's not the same. The crevices are in a different place. The problems are in a different place. The crevasses you sort of fall into are in means you have to go through the same thing over and over again. They're all different.
But do you have more confidence you'll actually
No.
do it? No?
I don't. I
Okay.
don't. But I don't panic as much because I know that if I finish the first 6 or 7, that the chances are pretty good that I can finish the next one. But while you're in it, and you don't know where you're going. At least I don't. And so I don't know until my story sort of sits there, until I get to the point where I know that's the story. Okay, then I relax a little bit. But until I get there, man, you don't want to live in my house. You really don't. You really do not, okay? I'm pacing back and forth. I'm talking to myself like a crazy person. Voices are in my head. I don't know where to put them on the page. And I just sometimes I go down to my writing desk with dread because I don't know where I'm going. And that's not a good spot to be in. I mean, really, not when people are looking for your stuff in about 6 months. But it works itself out eventually. I get to the point where I know what the story is. I know what the characters need to do. And so I do it, But getting there sometimes is hard. And that's why writers drink.
Yeah.
I don't happen to, but
She
or
just
eat
watched
licorice
me
or
drink. But I call that coming down with a novel.
okay.
And that's it's like the family knows. It's like, okay, Mom, the spaghetti sauce is delicious, but where's the pasta?
Absolutely.
And my husband asked me, he's back there, he asked me the other day, he said, did you leave the key in the mailbox? I'm like, I'm sure I didn't. He said, well, a neighbor brought it by. So it's worse than a fever, right?
Tracy pointed it out that one of the reasons this is all such a crazy world in publishing is that you're trying to marry creativity with business, and
Yeah.
it's in a way it's an oxymoron, because if you're really running a good, sound business, you need a predictability factor,
Yes.
and
There is none.
no, there really isn't, and a writer that I've never heard of that maybe has written several books might all of a sudden come up with a monster book that we're all surprised by, and somebody who's a terrific writer may write not such a good book because not every book is great, even for really talented writers. And so, from my standpoint, trying to figure out, I keep asking our customers, for example, to pre-order, because if I don't have any benchmark, I'm just going to
Right.
guess in the blind. How many books do we need to get? For example, I did not advertise Onyx Storm because my experience with the publisher
You
is
didn't
they
need
don't
to.
always deliver as many books as I order. And if I had said anything about having, they're all gone. I mean, people found their way to it. But I thought it, but Rob said to me, why didn't you have a midnight release party? And I said, because I had no way to figure out how to manage it.
Wow.
I mean, it's just.
Do you have like a dartboard hidden somewhere?
No, I mean, it truly is a guess. Last
Yeah.
Saturday with Alice Feeney, we saw down to the last book, and my heart was in my mouth thinking, she's British. There's nothing I'm going to be able to do if we sell out, and people are disappointed. And it happened with C.J. Bach last year, and sometimes we have 80 books left over. I wish I knew how to manage that because from a business standpoint, that's really, you don't want to A, disappoint your customers, but B, you don't want to throw all your profits at UPS, sending the books back because they're here on consignment. So it's just as crazy for me as it is for you.
And and then with the editors, right? You hear all these stories like J.K. Rowling couldn't get anybody to buy her book. So the editors they've got that same
There
Ouija
are
board. Or,
many stories of books
Yeah.
that suffered incredible numbers of rejections before anybody. And that's the thing. You never know what readers are going to fasten on.
or how the
You
world's
just-
going to change.
That too. Books can be upset. I feel sorry for the thriller writers who write for the very last minute, like Brad Thor or Daniel Silver or something. The whole world can blow up between the time they put their books in and the time it comes out. It's like, oh my God. It's not journalism. I mean, it's not, they're not writing for the New York Times where, breaking news or anything.
Right.
It's very hard. Christina's a journalist, and you decided not to write about journalism, didn't you? Well, you did, but I mean, not in the sense that the world.
Messed me up. I was referencing Twitter and then it imploded and became X. But
Oh.
we just made a note at the beginning of the book that said,
Oh.
bear with us.
That's true. It did
It was
happen.
sort of
Yeah, I'd forgotten about that. Since I don't have it, I don't do any personal social media at all. I wasn't aware of that, but good for you.
There's some espionage writer who wrote a great novel about the Ukraine when it was the Ukraine, and then Russia invaded, and she had to go all the way back to they were about to release the book, and she had to pull it and rewrite the whole thing because
That's why it's more fun just to make stuff up in Chicago
That's what I do.
or Singapore. You don't have to worry about that.
I don't have to worry about that.
The yacht business is going to continue. Anyway, these are wonderful books, and it's really interesting to have two authors that write such different kinds of books here. And one of the things is their publisher is very good. These are both. Are you published by Thomas and Mercer too? Both of you.
same editor.
Okay,
too.
Thomas and Mercer is an imprint of Amazon Publishing, and the woman who runs Amazon Publishing, Gracie Doyle, and I have been friends forever, and we are a bookstore that really enjoys showcasing them, but not every independent bookstore loves Amazon, and so I think that we're lucky that we get a chance to talk to authors that maybe other bookstores don't get to talk to, right? Because they don't. So good for you guys. They're a wonderful publisher, and
really
they treat you
appreciate it.
super well, don't they?
They do.
Yeah.
And I was lucky enough with my first book. There was a bidding war, and somebody said go with Thomas and Mercer because that's where good business is.
Well, I mean, one of the myths of publishing is that it's data-driven, and only at Thomas and Mercer could you really say that is true. I think
They
their
have
data,
the data.
their data is fairly reliable, but other publishers, for a variety of reasons I won't bore you with, kind of operate on a faith-based system. Am I really telling them the truth about how many books I ordered and how many books we sell? And they don't have any way to know. But I do think that Thomas and Mercer really does a great job for
They
his
do.
authors.
Yes, they really do.
Yeah, so we have Bob Dugoni coming soon.
Oh, good.
And yeah, that'll be great. And J.T. Ellison, Tess Gerritsen will be here with Sandra Brown. Now, all of these are Thomas and Mercer authors. Many of them we knew for years, doing various kinds of books. So there's Bob, actually right there on the screen. He's such a heartbreaker. And there's my puppy, yay, who loves to come to book events. Right. So questions from all of you. Yes.
I have a question. So you didn't name Northwestern. Is there a reason you didn't use the name?
I didn't wanna.
Well, I didn't know if there was anything.
No, I just figured
far as-
I didn't want that kind of heat, so I just renamed it. You never know what's gonna happen. Somebody might want to sue you or something. Yeah, you don't want to.
Yeah, exactly.
So I just hinted at it, put it where it is, and named it something else. And better safe than sorry.
Safer. Yeah.
You don't want the purple monster after you.
And when you submit your book, there's a questionnaire where they do ask you,
Yeah.
have any of these events taken place in actual areas? And I think as long as you,
Yeah.
if good
No.
things happen, it's okay, but don't kill anybody.
Dead bodies they don't usually like.
Yeah, no food poisoning at restaurants.
No.
Exactly. Yeah, right. Try not to kill anybody in a hospital that you name, whatever. All right, Christina.
I have a question for each, but let me make sure Kim's okay with that. Do you have a question? She was teasing me because I asked so many questions. So, Barbara, have you been on a yacht? Are you going to if you haven't yet?
I have not been on a yacht. I did everything short of killing somebody to get on a yacht, and it's pretty easy to get on a regular yacht, which is less than 100 feet long.
Is it? If I haven't been on, am I a loser then? If it's that easy?
No, you can actually rent them. It's like
can.
Airbnb.
Well,
Sure I can, Barbara.
if you have a spare few $100,000 plus expenses, you can get on for a week. That's about. I actually.
That was a generic, not a specific you, Christina.
I'm sure with your journalistic chops, you could make it happen. Go to the Monaco Yacht Show. How did I not get on?
Did you like? I mean, you talked about that huge book you read, and then you had somebody sort of vet it to make sure it was accurate. Those contacts you weren't able to at least take a peek.
I didn't make the travel effort, to be honest. And the best shot I had was some family friends knew somebody had a super yacht in Seattle, and they got to go on it, and they took video footage for me. But this guy's a real recluse, and no, you're not having a rider on my boat. They're not yachts, by the way. They're boats to the people who own them. Yes.
That's good to know. So
Yeah.
I can
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Thank you. Okay, Tracy. So Tracy's always fond of saying that she doesn't plot, but your characters, like, how much time do you spend in your head with your characters because they're so well developed before you start writing? Because when you say you don't plot, I think some people get the vision you just sit down, you're like, "Bleh," and maybe you feel that way, but your characters are really developed. Like, did you know what you were giving them all? Because you rattled off a lot of things for Harriet when you started.
No. When I started this series, I had her on the sidewalk in front of the police station, and I didn't know a thing about her, other than the fact that she was African American and a Chicago police detective, and she had lost a son. That's all I had when I started. And what you do with characters, or try to do with characters, is layer them and make them as human as you can possibly make them. You give them all the flaws and frailties that we all have, and you give them things that they have to deal with. And so on top of that dead son, I gave her a partner that died of maybe suicide. She doesn't think is that, but that's what she's been told. It's suicide. Her marriage broke up after the death of the son. So she's got an ex-husband who remarried and has new children. So Harriet, when we meet her, has practically nothing. She has a home that she bought on purpose because it is in a location that overlooks the tree where her son was killed. And she's got nothing in that house. Nothing. She's got no paintings on her walls. She's got nothing, no food in her refrigerator. She has a chair. She has a vase that she put marbles in every day to mark the days. And that's how she gets through. She picks up little things throughout the day to sort of get through the next hour. A paper clip, a thumbtack, things that sort of move her forward even though she doesn't feel like moving forward. And all of that stuff came from that sidewalk. That's all I had to begin with. And then as I move her in there, these little details sort of pop up because she tells me what they are. I hear voices all the time. That could be writing. It could be something else. I'll get it checked out later. But right now, that's kind of how I do it. I put them there. I put them in the room. And then they move. They act. They do things. And that's how I learned who they are. It took me, I think, 2.5 books before I had a really firm grasp of who Harriet was, because she does not talk to me like other characters talk to me. She is very quiet, very insulated. She doesn't even talk to her team most of the time. She's all about the business. When she's working, wonderful investigator. She goes home and she takes that badge and that gun off, and she's got nothing and she's sort of stuck. And so her arc through this series has been, what is it that's going to move her from this point to that point? Because she's got to get better. She's got to sort of rejoin the human race, and she doesn't know how to do that. So she's finding serial killers. She's finding killers all over the place, and then she's only half a person. And so that's the challenge for me, to sort of figure out how to make her whole again. So I'm on book 4. She's a little better than she was in book 1, but she's not where she needs to be. So that's the challenge for me. That's what sort of keeps me interested in sort of writing about her, because I want to figure out what's gonna fix her. But I don't know any of that stuff when I first start. All I have is her standing on the sidewalk, not sure she wants to go in. What else can she do? She's a cop. If she doesn't do this, what else are you gonna, so, little by little, little weight on the scale. Just one little detail.
Those work for you.
Yeah, no.
They really do.
It's tiring at some.
What about your other character? Are you going to write any more about her?
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah, she'll turn up again. I just have to figure out again where she. I can't remember now where I left her. So I have to figure out where that is, because I have to sort of get it. Yeah, get in that. Yeah, ambiguous. Yeah, wasn't it? So I have to figure out where she is, where she is in her headspace, and then I'll come up with something. I always do. It just takes a while.
Anyone else?
You talked about it. Writing, is that your career, or do you have a second?
You mean a paying job?
With health insurance.
But yeah, well, okay, yes.
Yeah, I have a day job. So I write between 5:30 and 8 o'clock, and then I have my Cheerios. And then 8:30, I start my day job, and I work from 8:30 to 4:30. And then if I have an idea for the book that I'm writing, I sort of have a Post-it note, and I'll sort of write myself a note, and it'll meet me at 5:30 the next morning. So I have to sort of use two sides of my brain. I edit during the day for a newspaper company, so it's a different part of my brain that I have to use, but it seems to work out okay eventually.
And for me, I am lucky that I do this full time. Although I had read that that writers, whether they write full time or they write part time, they still only work the same number of hours a day, so it comes out the same.
Very often, right. I remember Michael Connelly talking about he could hardly wait to leave the LA Times, so he could write full time. He actually
And then he's
spends
still
less
doing
time
3
writing
yeah.
now. Yeah. Well, but that was before television, and also in his case, being famous takes a lot of time. It really does, because people want stuff from you all the time, or you're offered delicious treats that you don't want to turn
doing
down,
all those
or
TV shows.
well,
and-
yeah, but I mean,
brutal.
there's it's
Yeah.
actually quite hard if you are a writer and you need a lot of time and alone time and all. It's hard to balance a
It
very
is.
successful, a meteoric kind of career with creativity, because that it detracts from it.
It does, and even without a meteoric career, your publisher expects you to handle a lot of the marketing and the PR and to put that business cap on. So it's not like in the good old days where you could just focus on your work and then your editor handled everything for you. It's
Social media is a curse as
It
well as a
is.
blessing. There's no
Yes.
question about it. And it does suck up an unbelievable amount of time. It does. I made a decision not to have any.
You were
So
smart.
I do
Very
the
smart.
Instagram for the bookstore. That is my social media. And, other than that, I'm shielded from all of the social media
Oh,
storms that go around. I don't care if TikTok goes away. No, it's okay with me. Yeah, whatever. So I have Christina and other people who do social media for the bookstore. So I thank you for that. You're very good about posting.
Sending you photos. Don't give me that much credit.
No, you do a lot of posting that, where we get tagged and so forth. We're very fortunate that we have many people who do that for us. We also have a new employee who actually understands it all. She wrote to me today. We have 2 Jens. You either have to be named John, used to be, or Jen, apparently, to work here. So we have Jen with a J and Jen without a J, in email. So I don't know how this happens. But anyway, she really seems to have a handle on social media. So she wrote me today and asked me for a great, do you have any great photos? So she was sorry when I sent her quite a lot of them. But I thought, how wonderful! Now I have, I could just like forward everything to her. That's the sign of an executive, right? Where you just like do that. Right. Anyone else? You had a question.
Yeah, although you guys really talked it up great, the whole writing career, in case anybody after that has not given up, what, what would you give as advice for some writers and new writers? I feel like that's sometimes, Tracy, that seems like a passion of yours is like helping them.
Keep writing. That's the advice that I was given when I first started, because it's easy to stop, because it's a hard thing. And you get frustrated and it doesn't work. It doesn't sound like all the other books that you've read. You're missing something. You're not sure what that is. I went to conferences all the time and sat in panels about craft, and I still wasn't getting it. And it took me 20 years to get published. That's 20 years of writing and thank you. Only because of spite and because I'm pig-headed, and I just would not stop. And that's what you have to have. You have to have that determination to keep writing, because it's tough and it's easy to stop. So learn what you need to learn, practice what you need to practice, and keep at it until you get it. I mean, you can't not finish, Kim. You can't not finish. You have to finish. Unless you finish, you have nothing to work on. So you look at it as a sort of a mound of clay. That's not a sculpture. It's just clay. And until you sort of craft it into a face or a body or whatever it is, you've got just clay. And so you need the statue so you can sort of massage it and make ears and noses and all the rest of it. You have to have that. But that's only the beginning. You have to finish. And when you finish, then you go to the next stop. But you have to keep writing. That's the advice Eleanor Taylor Bland gave me almost 30 years ago. Keep writing, because it's easy to stop. Most people want to stop. I wanted to stop. And in fact, I stopped for 2 years. I got one rejection letter too many. And I put my book into a drawer, and I left it there for 2 years. And I had people who knew I was writing say, well, how's the book coming? Great. Great. It's going just fantastic. All right. And it was in the drawer for 2 years. But there's something in your body, something in your person that says this is for you, and you have to keep at it until you get it right. And however long it takes. Everybody's journey is different. Everybody's path is different. Some people write that first book and bam, million seller, they're off to the races. The rest of us are normal people, and it takes time. It takes time to sort of hone that craft and get it right and keep at it. So that's my advice to any writer. Just keep writing.
Thank you for being so honest.
Words
Thank
of
you.
wisdom.
I really did mean it when I clapped, because that's a huge, huge deal.
Yeah.
So if I understand your process, you have no clue what the next book for.
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I have absolutely. I sort of, well, the publishers ask you, what's your idea for the next one? So I sort of come up with something and just sort of throw it out there, because I was writing the other thing. So I'm still writing this, and okay, it's about this. And now that's what I have to write about. So I have to figure out between the time I finish this and start the other, what that story is going to look like. So it's in the back of my head now. I'm writing the thing I'm writing now, but I'm also thinking about the next thing. And I will sort of hit that when I hit that blank page on that laptop and see what comes out. I will put a character on the page, see if it works, see if it's got some energy and some propulsion and some gas to it. And if it doesn't, I have to come back the next day and start over and try to find that entryway. I've got to find something that's got some gas. And so I will meet that mountain when I meet that mountain. And until then, I'm trying not to think about it because it makes me nervous.
What would you say?
My advice is to write what you love and to not be a weather vane and to not let other people tell you what your story should be and what you should be writing.
Well, I think writing what you like to read is a very good, if you really don't like the story, you can't do a very good job writing it, right? So I do think that it matters. I also think a lot of writers, when they have some confidence and books under their belt tend to branch out and do other. Look at Brad Meltzer, for example. He wrote thrillers, and now he's writing, nonfiction. And, I don't think writers always have to write in the same lane. It's possible to do lots of different things, but you have to you really have to have an inner compulsion and be happy to be there. How awful to sit at your desk if you hated being there. Well,
Yep.
Really hated, as opposed to, you know what I mean.
Well, some days are good. Some days are good. You love being there. The story's going well. You know where your character's going. All right, you're really happy to be there. And then some days you sort of look at your desk like, oh my God, there it is. Okay, and you have no idea where so there's no rhyme or reason to it. I mean, so some days are good, some days are not good, but that's life.
And
it
also
happens.
recognize that on those good days, you're going to get up the next morning, you're going to read it, and you'll go, oh my God, this is so bad. And it's just your state of mind. It's not really bad. And don't you find that? Realizing that, might not be perfect, but it's not as bad as you thought it was when you woke up and after that great day and thought it was going to be fantastic. And then you're like, oh no.
Well, I know because I don't read what I did before, so I just sort of keep moving. I'm like a workhorse. I mean, I come from journalism, so we don't have a lot of time to sort of navel gaze. All right, so we are in there. It has to go. It has to go. There's a deadline. We have to get this done. Boom, 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 boom. So I put it down there the day before, and not great, but I keep moving forward. And if I come up with something as I'm moving forward that sort of fixes that problem, then I go back. Because, that's inspiration. That's stuff you need. So I'm back and forth all the time. So by the time I get to the end, I'm so exhausted. And I'm so tired of this story. I don't want to see it again. But that's the process. That's it. That's how you write books. Some days are good. Some days are bad. You get to the end, not great. You go back and you fix it. You go back and fix it. You might do that 5, 6, 7 times. All right. But that's what the thing is. So it's kind of fun. Sometimes.
We're totally convinced, Tracy.
I mean, anybody writers out here? I'm not going to turn anybody off. I mean, but it's okay. It's an okay job. I mean, it's an okay.
You heard that word deadline. You've already touched on that. Before you're published, when you're working on whatever book it is that eventually will get published, forever. You can tear it up, you can rewrite it, you can show it to your friends, you can hide it. It doesn't make any difference. And but once you let go of it, it doesn't actually even belong to you anymore. It belongs to people who read it. Your publisher works on it, the whole bit. And then you do have that word called deadline, but I don't know if any of you had any experience in school, but I can tell you right now, I probably never would have graduated and gone on to other degrees if there hadn't been actual deadlines, where it's like, turn it in, Barbara, I think that that it would be hard to keep going, to keep writing so many books if you didn't actually have deadlines. And that's partly where the business part comes in, because you don't get paid unless you actually turn in more books, right? So unless you make a killer on the first one, you live off it forever, which occasionally happens, but not very often.
You get your advance, but to carry you. But I really prefer the word due date, not deadline.
Oh, okay. All right. There we are. Anybody else have a question? Well, thank you very much then for coming out this evening. Let's give our authors a round of applause. Thank you, virtual audience, for joining us. And if you all would like to get your book signed, I think that it probably works best if you guys just stay there at sort of photograph and signing height, if that's okay with you. Sounds good. Let me grab your microphones. I'll move